welcome everybody to our Wednesday live stream over here on HP to XP. I was trying to think of like an absolutely awesome joke or some kind of stupid opener because I love that kind of stuff and had absolutely nothing. So we're going to go with this one. The punchline to the funniest joke in the world is the bartender says, "That's not a duck." The problem is nobody knows the rest of the joke. So, yeah, I'll work on the material. Sorry. Anyway, with that in mind, hello, Fairy. Hello, Friday. Hello, Thurl. We are going to be talking with one of the players in the Umbranthal Livestream campaign that we are getting ready to start. We are going to be talking with Side Quest Steph here in a couple of seconds. And for everybody who wants to participate in that, feel free to throw thoughts in chat. I will try to look over there from time to time and catch up on them. But with that, we are going to go ahead and bring in your friend and mine, Steph, for our conversation this afternoon.
Oh, hey, everyone.
Steph, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here.
Outstanding. We are excited to have you here. And when I say we, I mean myself and all of the audience. So awesome. I, in fact, do not have a mouse in my pocket at this point in time. But so the idea here, and obviously you and I have talked about this a little bit, and I've talked about it with the other players, but the idea here is that we want to give the folks who are going to be paying attention, right, an idea of who the various performers are that are going to be participating in this Umbranthal campaign. And you get to be the inaugural interviewee for this. So you're setting the bar for everybody else.
Oh, God.
We'll see what they come up with from there. So with that in mind, let's start. Total softball, total can of corn question. Why do you play D&D?
Ooh, I was thinking about this earlier too, because I started doing like role play, like storytelling online with like forum based conversations. But even before that, I was role playing and storytelling like growing up with my sibling and like with friends. My parents put up with a lot because we would have, model horses all over the house, multiple day adventures that took us from one room to the next, and eventually got cleaned up. But it was like we were telling stories from the time that we could tell stories, and I never really thought about D&D as an avenue for that until like 2015 or 2016. And my partner got into it and was, reading about it. And then we came across, Critical Role and various other groups that were streaming it. And I was like, yes, where has this been my whole life? And that I fell into that hole pretty deeply.
Nice. So tell me, because I am of that generation that early internet, I shouldn't say generation, I'm just the guy that early internet missed. There are times I want to blame it on generation, but the fact of the matter is just me. Because I think my generation are the ones that actually started most of it. But so tell me about the forum-based game thing, because it's not something that I ever played. I had no experience with it. So what, and I see other people do like the play-by-text format, and I assume it's sort of the same thing. So like, what is that about?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with it in a limited capacity. I did a lot of it when I was in high school and middle school. And this is going to sound so nerdy, but I kind of got started with it through Neopets, which for those of you that know is a website that's got like little virtual pets on it, and you can paint them different colors, and I'm not ashamed of it. But anyway, they had forums, and there was like an RPG and storytelling forum, and I met a lot of really great folks who wanted to role play, a story, about wolves or about any other type of like fantasy type of realm. And it was, here's your character, here's a picture of, I drew this character, somebody else drew this character, this is their traits and background and such, and then how we're just writing a story together. They're posting what their character's doing, and I'm thinking like, what would my character do, how would they respond, write that back. So it was a slower and like really well thought out approach to it, less instantaneous like D&D at a table can be.
Mhm.
And it really created a lot of cool stories and interesting bonds, and a number of people that I still stay in touch with like as an adult to this day, even though we're not on these forums anymore. I know there's a bunch of other forums that folks use for those storytelling purposes, and I feel like we all just kind of found each other, like we were looking for that, and then found our way to those forums and those stories.
Okay. So did it take the the style of a turn-based thing in the way D&D would, or would it just be somebody would post, everybody else would post, and you would kind of go through it the way you might with, say, a like an online class where you're doing like a Blackboard type thing where you would just go through and look at everybody's posts and then go from there?
Yeah, similar to like an online class where you had some folks were like online more often and some were less frequent. But it was interesting because like without really communicating or talking about rules, we would subtly wait for other players or other posters to kind of catch up, especially if we were at a point where like in the story where something could happen, like it's a battle or a big decision is being made. But when it was just conversational or like the RPing, it was just kind of like whoever's online and wants to respond does so. It was really free flowing, and I'm realizing how structured it was despite the incredible lack of structure.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. So one of the things that I've kind of paid attention to is free play in kids in particular. I spent quite a few years as a scout leader in Boy Scouts of America, and got a chance to watch what happens when you just turn youth loose in the woods and say, entertain yourselves. We're here to keep it from turning into Lord of the Flies. And inevitably, that sort of cooperative play develops its own sort of unspoken structure of rules. And I know in my experience, so I started playing D&D back in 1986 with the Red Box. And I've said to other people before that when I started playing D&D, I fell in love with the idea of D&D because I was 10. I didn't we weren't really playing the game. We were playing our idea of what the game was based upon how much of the rules we both read and understood at that time. And it gave us that sort of free form kind of like, oh, well, there are kind of some rules, right? Yeah, sure. We sort of looked at some of the pictures in the book and started playing from there. And I think it does lend itself to kind of teaching you how to develop that give and take experience. So,
Mm-hmm.
so outside of getting into D&D, you are a streamer yourself of uh, of growing popularity. What prompted you to take your gaming enthusiasm and jump into the streaming world?
That is a great question and kind of a funny story. I've been a gamer. I didn't realize I was a gamer for a number of years because oddly enough, I thought that gamers had to be people who, had multiple consoles or like had been playing for a really long time. and or many games, and I'd played, the original Tomb Raider when it came out in the 90s, and I'd played a number of other like smaller games, and I didn't really think of myself as a gamer until like kind of in the last like 10 years. I'm like, wait a minute, actually I was gaming way back then. I just was gaming in a different kind of like way, but also real actual computer gaming. So I've been playing a lot of video games in the last 6 to 10 months, because I have been missing them for a while, and also because lockdown is here. So a lot of my D&D campaigns, like my weekly and biweekly campaigns, got paused, and so I was like, well, might as well jump into video games more often. And then had that, one night where I was making funny commentary while playing games, and my partner said, "You'd make such a funny streamer." To which my response was, "What is streaming?" And then I fell down the rabbit hole of, oh, what is Twitch? How does Twitch work? YouTube videos on like how to stream and that and whatnot. And it I got started in late June, with my very first stream, and I've been like teaching myself like OBS, as well as, kind of like the Twitch platform. So it's fun because I love teaching myself new things, and I wanted a way to be able to connect with my friends, even though, we're not able to always meet in person, and just play games more with people, because I'm also a big tabletop and board game player. And so I've got a bookshelf full of board games that I'm not going to be able to dig into for a while. So streaming just came to me as like, oh, this is a really great option to continue gaming and doing it with friends online. But then that really turned into something more, in that I've met some really amazing people, and I've learned a lot more about Twitch and like the streaming platform, which has been really exciting and interesting, and something I didn't expect in the whole process. So,
What give me a top 3 favorite board games,
top 3 favorite board games.
or the top 3 that you'll go back to as soon as you can have a group of friends over. What'll be the first 3 you pull off the shelf?
Yeah. Well, we really the honestly, because my partner's around, so if it's a two-player game, we can get away with it. So it's usually the ones that are for four or more. And off the top of my head, I would say that I'm really looking forward to playing the Lord of the Rings card game, where you kind of like battle each other. It's sort of a little bit like Magic the Gathering, but Lord of the Rings based. And then there's another one. I'm trouble thinking about it now. Tokaido, where you travel across Japan trying to have the most fun on your vacation. I really love board games that involve beautiful art.
Mm-hmm.
I'm honestly trying to remember what some of the board games are on my shelf right now, because I haven't pulled them off in so long. Um, I'm just like kind of like, what are those games and what do I want to go back to? So you kind of put me on the spot there. I'll have to think about it.
Well, Cross would like to know if you've ever played Dune.
Dune. No, I have not played Dune, but I have heard some good stuff about it. I've definitely I really enjoy like board games that have beautiful art, kind of a simple way to play. I love cooperative games as well. So games like Pandemic, as well as there's another one. Oh, I remember. Wow, one of them that I really love is called Spirit Island, and it's a really beautiful board game that you play as a god or a spirit on this island, and the whole goal of the game is that you want to destroy the colonizers or the conquistadors that are coming in, and protect the native people as much as possible. And as the game goes along, you grow in your spirit powers. So if you start out as like a river or water spirit, your powers grow as the game progresses. And it's cooperative, so people can play different types of spirits with different types of elemental powers. And I love that it's a subversion on the colonize, destroy, and expand, which happens a lot in gaming as well as board games. So I thought it was a really cool take on, hey, like we've got like, these, people that are coming in from a foreign land, and they're going to take over and, make farms and whatnot, and you play as a spirit trying to like eliminate them, which I think is pretty funny.
That's an interesting one. Have you ever played Abyss?
I have not played Abyss.
It
No.
is a beautiful board game. It is worth your time. It's a fun game. It's a turn-based game. I think it's a 4 to 6 player. It might be a 3 to 6 player game. But it's a fun one. It's a beautiful one. It's all aquatic based, so it's right up your alley. I mean, like aquatic D&D, not not seahorses necessarily, but or sharks. But speaking of sharks, your background, your academic background at least, is marine biology. What
It is.
as somebody who is a fellow Midwesterner, what prompted studying marine biology?
To be honest with you, I kind of fell into it like I fall into a lot of things.
But
I know. I went to college as the first person in my family to go to college and didn't really know like how to best utilize college for the future as one sometimes does. And in my first year, there was a summer optional course that I could take in Belize to study coral. And I thought to myself, that sounds like fun. I should do it. And that led to, a summer term in the Caribbean studying corals, during what time I also encountered my first ever sharks underwater in the ocean, basically fell in love, decided that I wanted to continue studying them. But it was my first time scuba diving. It was my first time learning about the ocean. And I honestly got drawn into it because it seemed just so fun. So I thought to myself, like, I should try this and see if I like it. And scuba diving was really fun for me. It was kind of like a form of meditation in which, I can't, have a conversation with anybody else. And, we're all just like underwater, observing like natural beauty and its surroundings. So I thought to myself, like, I'll just continue down this road. So I spent a lot of time learning about, the ocean and all the marine animals in it. So I'm kind of a nerd in that way.
Cool. How far have you taken your dive certifications?
I've just advanced open water. I was going to do the rescue diver, but did not do that when I was in the Philippines last. So
there's always time.
There's always time. It never expires. That's the best part.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What? So the Philippines. When were you in the Philippines?
I was in the Philippines last couple years and was, doing some diving, also doing some, work there, and it was very hot. Um, so adjusting to coming back to the US was a little bit tricky, but pretty fun. So it was a really cool experience learning about the language and the food there. And just getting to experience everything from a different perspective, which is always another thing that I enjoy, learning and experiencing stuff from another perspective, which is, I think, which kind of ties into D&D in the sense that I enjoy playing characters that maybe represent like a niche part of my personality, or a part of my personality that maybe isn't there, like that is very different for me, just to see, what is that like.
Mm-hmm. What's one of those sort of personality types that you've identified through the course of your gameplay that you think really isn't part of who you are on a day-to-day basis, but one that you like bringing out in RP?
Probably like more of like the chaotic, neutral or like chaotic evil type of that sometimes appears a lot in my D&D realms. I think because in real life I want to like be good to people and I want to like help people, but I feel like what's nice is that in this like safe fantasy-esque realm, there's more leeway to explore and try different alignments, as well as just kind of fool around without it really causing, like, as long as you're being conscious of the other players and like what you're working on as a team. Try something that you've never done before in like a safe environment.
Yeah, for sure. I absolutely agree that is one of the things that role-playing games generally, D&D specifically, I think can be a huge asset, is offering that space to tinker and experiment. I think that there's a hesitancy for a lot of people to kind of take off and put on different masks in life, right? And in so many ways life is performative. Whatever we are doing is performance if we are engaging with anyone outside of our own head. And that the idea of this game is one that lends itself to offering that opportunity. It lets people explore, experiment, push up against things that would otherwise be very, very difficult or very, very uncomfortable terrain. And like you said, it allows people to do that in a safe way, a place where you kind of have some left-right boundaries of what the experience is going to turn into if it's being done well, and where you have a community of people that are going to kind of help pull you back from that edge if you start to push too far towards those boundaries. So yeah, I agree that that's absolutely a thing that's in play. So Trackhawk has jumped on. Hey Trackhawk, and he would like to ask, what are you most excited to explore in this campaign?
That's a tough question because to be honest, and like not trying to sound like too cheesy, it's like what I don't know. I really like being able to play with other players where I'm learning about their characters and their backstory. I'm learning about, the DM's world that they've created. And I try not to spoil myself as much as possible because I love being able to put those pieces together and like have those aha moments. I'm really looking forward to the relationship building. That's always like my favorite part, is to see, like how one player is going to complement another, or how like the team overall is going to change or face challenges. So I guess to summarize that, it would be like the unknown. That's what I'm really excited for. Because it's like we're writing a story together and none of us knows the answer to the story or how it's going to end. And the fact that, we have, some agency over how that story plays out is really cool to me. And, the fact that, going in, we have an idea of what our characters are going to be and how they might interact, but then that could totally change the moment we meet other characters or the moment we face like really intense events throughout the campaign. So it's like constantly shifting and changing, and there's almost no way to predict it, which is something I love.
Outstanding. Do you have any thing in particular that you would like me to share with the DM about what you are looking for in the campaign? I can let him know offline if there's anything.
I'm looking for surprise, excitement.
Outstanding.
I think you can deliver that.
I can certainly deliver surprise. We'll see about excitement. But so Fairy would like to know, to what degree are you comfortable sharing this? Who are you playing in the campaign? And I think that it would be completely reasonable. I know that all of you have, as players, have given one another enough of a kind of hint as to the characters that you're going to be playing, that there's no major spoilers for another player. So feel free to share as much about your character as you would like.
Yeah, I would prefer to share just very little, because like my last answer, I really value just like that surprise. And I feel like if I say too much about what my character is, then people will use that information to form their own opinion, as opposed to just experiencing the character in a raw form and making their own opinion based on that, and then maybe having that opinion subverted later on. So what I will share is that I will be playing a cleric. And I feel comfortable also sharing that it will be a Tabaxi Cleric, and that it will keep the cleric non-binary, as I am as well. So same pronouns, which will make it easy for folks to not have to switch between player and character. So I'm looking forward to Practicing my cat voice, which is much better than some of my other accents. If you've ever watched my personal stream, my British accent is terrible, and the other
I don't
accents
know. I
like
thought your Draco was fine.
Thank you. I don't know. I still haven't sent those clips to like some of my friends in the UK, but to get their feedback, I
I don't
would
think
say
you want
that
to do that.
I would say that doing accents that are like currently existing in the world are a challenge for me right now. It's something that I'd want to get to at some point, but I'm also conscious of, what is my comfort zone, what can I do and do well, and an accent that doesn't exist. Such as a cat's accent is one that I definitely can, work on and get down. So that's all I've got for now for the character.
Okay. Well, and I think that the accent thing's an interesting one because obviously one of the reasons people explore D&D is that idea of getting into character and performance. And it's certainly um it's become an expectation, I think, for games like this that are going to be streamed, right? They are going to it is a public art project that the performance aspect can be there can be an expectation that oh everybody's going to do an accent. And I think that it's important for players, DM, audience alike to remember that voice acting does not necessarily mean taking on a real or fantasy accent. It's bringing performance to what you're doing. It's tone, it's inflection, it's timbre, it's presence, and that character's presence being set apart from your normal presence at the table as a person, as a player. And that's, I think, something that can sort of dissuade people early on in D&D as like, oh, I'm no good at voices. Well, you don't have to be good at voices. Ideally, you have enough of an ability to take your voice and change how you present yourself, whether it's if you're normally a little more meek and retiring, you just become a little more booming and bassy, or it's cadence, or those various things are plenty of fine ways to change your performance voice from your normal speaking voice and bring it about that way. So as far as Trackhawk, an accent is those things that all of us in America have, as opposed to those of you in Canada. So just what you hear from Steph and I are accents. So Thurl would like to know, do you have a pet cat? Who is going to inspire this Tabaxi character?
Oh, I
Garfield aside.
Garfield aside, I have Garfield sitting on my computer because I had a pumpkin in Halloween, and then I felt like it looked empty without something, so I put Garfield there. I wish I had a cat so bad. Everyone's cat is my cat, in addition to their cat, as I've decided. I grew up with cats, though. I had two cats growing up, and then two more after my sibling was born. So probably like five or six cats, and then like lived with family members who had cats. And then I've had a cat, as an adult as well. So, but not currently, and I'm really bummed about it. But I know that I'll get there. Right now, there's my landlord doesn't allow pets, so there's that. So all of those cats are my inspiration. But in addition to that, I with the marine and the biology degree had kind of thought that I was going to be working in a zoo or an aquarium. So I've done some volunteer work and some work within zoos. So I've been able to like experience and kind of like see some of the bigger cats up close as well too. So they're my inspiration as well. I would say I'm definitely a cat person, even though I've also had a dog, and but I'm also kind of just a pet person because I've had an array of animals growing up, including snakes and fish and rats. So I'm one of those people.
So, all right. With that in sort of mind, if you don't currently have a cat that you're your experience has been informed by many cats. First off, I think it's important to state that I believe that cats are absolutely poly. So everybody else's cat is your cat, at least as far as the cat's concerned. There are no monogamous relationships with cats. There are many aloof relationships, but none of them are monogamous. So tell me a little bit about working with big cats, because I'm a cat person as well. I have grown up with and lived with cats almost my entire life. I am on a regular basis letting my wife know that I want a puma, which is not a joke. I legitimately want a puma. So for anybody who cares to check it out on YouTube and on Instagram, there is a channel called I Am Puma, and it is a couple in Russia who have a puma. Essentially, it's a rescue puma, and this puma is absolutely amazing. And what I love about the puma is that it is the largest of the small cats. It's still a feline genus, so it's as big as you can get in and still technically be a small cat. But I love cats of all kinds. I've always been a huge fan of the snow leopard. It's always been my favorite among the big cats. In working around, and to the extent that you did with big cats, what did you learn from that? What did you take away from that? What did you like about them, about that experience?
Yeah, a couple of things, and I think one thing that I'm remembering, if I'm remembering correctly, I think that pumas and cougars are uh, of the bigger felines that are still categorized as cats. I think that is where the cap is with purring. In that I think pumas can purr, whereas a lot of the other bigger cats like lions and tigers cannot. So what did I learn? A lot. I would say that imagining your house cat as an animal that's so big that it could destroy you at any point is kind of a terrifying realization to have, in that the safety precautions that you would need when working around them are there for a very good reason. I've done enrichment or toys with the tigers that I've worked with, in that, maybe we put some kind of like raw meat or interesting smells in cardboard boxes, take a rope, hang it off the balcony into their enclosure. The moment they catch it, there's no tug of war. You don't even bother playing that game. You give the box to them because it would not be a good idea. So just seeing that like raw animal instinct, and there's that devoid of like needing you human. You're not important really. So they kind of exude more of that, wild beastness that really like reminds you that you're small, which is another thing that I have realization that I like having, because when I go scuba diving, there's a lot of moments where you're underwater and you feel really small and it's a little bit scary. So kind of reminding you that like, hey, guess what? You're not the strongest, best out there. But also the way they carry themselves too, big cats or small cats, they're clearly carrying themselves in a way because they're like, I'm confident in my skills and ability. And I think that like kind of empowers me a little bit as somebody who, probably could believe in themselves a little bit more, as well as, just their ability to look cute and deadly at the same time. That's pretty hard to pull off, I feel like. So they're definitely pretty inspiring to me on a larger scale.
Yeah, I spent a couple of years working with non-releasable birds of prey, and I love working with predators. I would much rather work with a predatory animal than a herbivore or prey type animal any day of the week, because like you said, when you're working with a predator, you know that you are working with another intelligent agent that doesn't give a shit about you. Like your relationship is one that is based on respect, on trust, on mutual understanding, and you have to build it. They have no need for you other than as a source of food until you've cultivated a relationship with them. And you know, they're absolutely dangerous. I mean, I've almost lost an eye to a hawk. I've pulled talons out of my hands more times than I can count. You know, so yeah, you don't get to let your guard down without risk of injury. And sometimes even keeping your guard up, it can turn sideways real quick if their experience isn't a good one or they haven't been properly trained. But I think one of the things that I've always loved about them is that you can't train predators with punishment. It's just not possible. They will just wait for the moment to destroy you. You can only train a predatory animal with positive reinforcement. It has all the control in the world. And I think that that's such an amazing thing to see when you're doing it. That, you know, you can get this big cat, you can get this bird, this flighted bird that if it wants could either rip your face off or fly away. And you can train it where every time it's going to come back to that glove. Mm-hmm. Or every time, you know, this big cat that could absolutely just knock you down is going to come up and curl up at your feet because you've shown it a level of respect, given it agency, and you let it know that it doesn't have to be in a fearful place. And to see that behavior come out, I think is just, it's fascinating. It's absolutely enthralling.
Yeah, I agree.
Why sharks? What about sharks? Of all of the things that you've mentioned, you have your channel is dotted with marine life, shark references. There are shark necklaces. There's one now. What about sharks? Why sharks?
Why sharks? I love that you asked me this question because I never get tired of answering it. Why not sharks is usually my response, in that I went to college, and when I decided that I was going to study biology, I immediately, you know, was attracted, like we were talking about, to the lions and the tigers and the cute animals that are also have, you know, big, furry. They have lots of agency. People care about them. There's lots of conservation, you know, work going on for, you know, tigers and pandas and whatnot. And I had that, you know, professor in university who was like, you do know that, like, you know, it's going to be a tough field because a lot of people are, you know, working in it. And that conversation really resonated with me. And I sat down and, you know, was thinking about it a lot, in the sense that, you know, who is looking out for the frogs and the snakes and, you know, whatever of the world, because a lot of them are really important, if not more important than some of these mammals. So to, like, just generally, like, as a keystone species, a species that maybe like supports a whole bunch of other species just by existing. So and then that, combined with, you know, my trip to the Caribbean and seeing sharks, really made me realize that, you know, sharks are one of those animals that are incredibly beautiful, and 99% misunderstood. There's over 500 species of shark. They've existed for over 400 million years. They've survived every major extinction that's ever hit our planet. Their in general shape and design has not changed a lot since when they first came around. And sharks kill on average about 7 people a year. And so I like to talk about, when I talk about sharks, is like how you're more likely to die from something else. I think around 52 to 57 people a year die from coconuts falling on their heads. More people die from vending machines and selfies, so they're not looking and they're backing up. They, you know, get in a situation that's not great. So, but then on the flip side, about 100 million sharks are killed every year by humans. So 7 to 100 million is kind of, you know, a big difference. And when you get down to like the number of sharks that cause problems for humans, is that there's only about 5 species that are really problematic or like could be scary. to encounter. I mean, alligators kill more people a year than sharks, and they're protected. So I think it kind of bugged me that sharks, like wolves, in a lot of like movies and shows, are villainized, and unfairly so. And then I also just fell in love with how interesting and different they are, as animals. So
Yeah. I think one of the things that sharks sort of have going against them in comparison to probably any terrestrial predator is the fact that somewhere deep in all of our minds, we understand that civilization ends at the water's edge. Whatever whatever supremacy that humans have in terms of their ability to use intellect, planning, shape our environment, the second you drop us into water, it's gone. And we are just part of the food chain. And now there is this thing, this apex predator that, like all other predators, doesn't give a shit about what we think of ourselves. And we're now thrust in this environment where we also know, oh shit, I can't even think of myself positively right now because I'm one breath away from feeling like I'm dying at any given moment. And so I think that, aside from deeper sort of, any sort of deeper psychological sort of diagnosis of, our Jungian doubts about that which lurk in the deeps and things like that. I think just the fact that, as mammals, we go, oh, water, nope. That's not my natural element. I think that plays a huge role in it. Of the sharks that you have dove with, have there been any that you were just like, oh my God, this is absolutely amazing. It's totally majestic. This takes the cake.
Absolutely. Yes. Whale sharks.
Oh, wow.
Sharks. Yeah, they're the largest fish in the world, and I think that they could get about 40 plus feet in length. They're filter feeders, so they're just sucking up plankton on the surface of the water. So they're very harmless as long as, you don't get close to that tail, because even though they swim rather slowly, you don't want to get hit by something that big. And I've been able to snorkel with them and dive with them. And like the first time I saw one underwater, I remember swearing loudly into my snorkel. I was just like, fuck, because it was so massive. And then, swimming really hard to keep up with them, because even if they're swimming slowly, like, you're a human, and I'm not that strong of a swimmer, to the degree that, it takes a lot of effort to keep up with them. But yeah, I like those moments. You were talking about like going into the ocean and how that's scary. And I feel that. And I think that I like that. I like that adrenaline. I like that reminder that like I am tiny. I like that reminder that like there's more to the world than, just me. And also I really just love like learning. So I can definitely understand why certain areas, and the ocean and sharks are very scary, because you feel very helpless in those situations, So, but yeah, whale sharks were definitely takes the cake, best experience. Went back, did more. We'll probably hopefully do more in the future. I have a tattoo of a whale shark. I love them so much.
Where did you dive with whale sharks?
In the Philippines. They travel through the Philippines and kind of migrate through different areas. And so I was on a boat with, a spotter who's out there looking for them, and they've got those like modeled spots on their top of them. So I was never good at picking them out, but the Filipinos are really well able to pick them out, and zoom up next to them, jump out of the boat, kind of swim, hang around with them. And they can really choose to be with you, because being a shark, they don't need to drink. They don't need to drink. They don't need to breathe air. So they could just, dive down and stay underwater for as long as they wanted. But a lot of them really like the company of, people swimming with them. So there's also the area where I went was, kind of doing it in a more environmentally friendly way. We're not touching the sharks, we're not feeding the sharks, we're just swimming with them. There were days that I'd go out and we didn't see any just because it's, it's the ocean. You can't
Yeah.
guarantee anything. So,
Yeah. The shark didn't necessarily get the memo.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, my son dives, and we periodically will get videos that he has taken of him diving with sharks. His most recent one was diving with bull sharks in Florida, and he sent a great video of this. He's taking this video, and the bull shark swims past him and literally just swacks him in the head with its tail as it goes by, and just see the kid in the camera just kind of tumble over. And
Oh, geez.
yeah, good
There's
times.
I'm imagining how that is like on the side of being a parent, because being the type of person that I am, I go into a lot of situations that are like safe scary, I guess is how I would describe them, where like the likelihood of something going wrong is very low, but a lot of people maybe would choose not to, like skydiving or bungee jumping, diving with sharks. And there's a number of those things that I kind of tell my mom afterwards. Like I'll just be like, oh, by the way, this already happened, so no need to worry about it.
Yeah. Fortunately, he will share with me a lot. Of course, some of it is after the fact, much of it is in advance. But I spent 20 years running into burning buildings for a living, so he gets that I have a comfort with life is risky, whether you choose for it to be or not. So if you're doing the stuff that you love, don't be stupid. Basically, you use your good judgment, and you're probably much more likely to get hurt texting on your phone between Starbucks and your dorm room than you are to have a problem diving. That said, and I love this story. So he got certified down in Florida when he was in the summer after 7th grade. So his very first open water ocean dive, they go down, he gets down to 15 feet, 20 feet, whatever it is, and takes a breath and nothing. Just regular stops. Gives the sign to the instructor for out of air. The instructor looks at him like you would any 13-year-old who's been underwater for 4 minutes and has run out of air, and gives him the look of, don't fuck around, man. Like, this is not the time for that. And the kid just very quietly gives him the sign once again, reaches over, takes the guy's buddy regulator, spits his out, puts the other regulator in, purges it, gives a sign to go up. He hadn't turned his tank on all the way.
Oh,
like, he had literally just cracked it. I loved it. As soon as he got back, we find out about it. I loved it. I was thrilled. As somebody who spent most of my adult life teaching emergency procedures to firefighters, the fact that his first live experience, he had a failure, I thought was phenomenal. Because I'm like,
yeah,
cool, now you've won. You've gotten over that hurdle, right? You've had the problem. You solved the problem. You were too dumb to not have the problem to begin with, but you didn't freak out. You handled it. And now you've had that experience of, oh, okay, I just got to solve this problem. Mm-hmm. And one, you'll never not check your tank again. That issue's crossed off the list. We don't ever have to worry about that, however many years you dive now going forward. But yeah, just that experience. And I think that's great. I think that's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so Thurl says that space and the ocean equally scary. Yes, I will agree with you, Thurl, except for one thing. I can walk to the ocean. I can very readily avoid ever going to space if that is, like, I got to make some real efforts to go to space. The ocean is only so far away. Friday likes the feel of being small. Yeah, that's absolutely a part of it. Trackhawk, I love the concept of diving and the ocean, and I love underwater videography, etc. However, also have really bad thalassophobia, and those two things don't mix. Is that fear of sharks or fear of the water? What is that, Trackhawk?
No.
I know it's a phobia, but that one I don't know. So you're gonna have to clue me in because I might be afraid of it too. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
C. So fear of large bodies, water,
Okay.
deep water, vast emptiness of the sea waves, sea creatures, fear of distance from land. Okay, so you're more of a lake guy. That's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, where I'm from, there are some Great Lakes.
Wow, that was a good one.
Thanks. I was working on it. I've been planning that for hours. Yeah, so let's wrangle our way back to D&D a little
Yeah, let's
bit.
get back to D&D.
So I mean, I think it's totally cool to wander away from it completely because people are going to get to see us play D&D.
Yeah.
You know, that's sort of a thing to come. For me, these opportunities are a chance for us to get to talk, but also for other people to just kind of get to know us a little bit as people and the folks that are going to be playing these various characters. But getting back to D&D for a moment, why do a live stream campaign? Why participate in that?
Yeah. I guess I love I'm realizing, like, you know, through the, like, this conversation as well as like analyzing my life and whatnot, I'm really big into like those like moments that happen in the moment. So, and like experiencing that feeling of, you know, being really excited or whatever in the moment. So live streaming a D&D campaign has been on my radar for a little while. Like I said, I just got into streaming myself, not at the capacity where I could have run my own campaign. And I've only DM'd a few times, so I feel more comfortable as a player than a DM. And so I thought to myself, it would be fun to get to know a whole bunch of new people, experience that story and that storytelling, learn about things that I have no idea about, as well as, you know, just kind of like have that like raw in the moment, like reacting to each other and like making a story for other folks. And so went online, kind of just wondering how somebody, you know, gets involved with a D&D live stream. Came across y'all's posting on D&D Beyond. Fell into your laps in the sense that I wasn't really trying very hard. I was just kind of like, I don't really know what's out there. I have no idea, you know, who's running a game or what it looks like to get involved with a game. Met Sarah, got and starting to get to know all the other performers. That being said, I'm really excited for all of them to like have this moment on Twitch as well, so that I can be on that end, getting to know them a little bit better as well. And really enjoyed all of my conversations with everybody and was like, yes, this seems like, you know, exactly where I would want to be and where I'd be a great fit. So I just like that, you know, knowing that you're going to like mesh well, or that you feel really good about it, was very clear to me from the onset.
Nice. So I'm going to loop back though for a second. Why did you want to get involved in a live streaming D&D game? What about the live stream aspect of it was interesting to you or intriguing or something that you wanted to explore?
Well,
I can say that same thing three different ways again if you would like me to.
I think like, no, I don't mind you rephrasing it. I think another way I can answer it is by saying that I've never done it before. And I am constantly doing things that I've never done before. It's like the story of my life. And I love trying new things. I love making new friends. I love learning what I like and what I don't like. And I already love D&D and I already love streaming. So I was like, well, live streaming D&D sounds awesome. I enjoy performing. I feel like I have, you know, a good element of like, you know, back and forth with people. I like collaborating, and I feel like it would be a really fun way for me to, I don't know, share, you know, my art and my poetry with the rest of the team, as well as like, you know, viewers.
I am laughing at Friday's comment, not at your response. So yeah, yes, I agree, and I think that I mean, of course, I agree. You're expressing what you think about yourself, so yes, I agree with you. Good job. Um, I think for me, one of the things that appeals to me about the idea of a live stream campaign as opposed to uh, simply playing at a table with friends is that it is that public performance piece of it, and it's the opportunity to do a collaborative public art project, and I think that that's what separates good public gaming from private gaming, right? The game itself should be pretty much the same, right? Like if you are playing with good people, the gameplay should be pretty consistent, and the um maybe there's a few things that go rule of cool one way or the other in a home game versus a public game, depending upon the DM and the players and what they're looking to give an audience. But um, but at the end of the day, I think that um, what any public art project is doing is looking to entertain, influence, and inspire. And I mean, I know I, for one, am hoping that that's something that we're able to do. I think that everybody that's involved in this game has a deep and abiding love for it. Some of us have been at it longer than others, but some of us are older than others. So that's how it works. Have you only played 5e?
I've only played 5e.
Okay.
Yeah, I've played a little bit of other tabletop RPGs. Like I've played a bit of Fate, and then I'm also reading through a lot of the guide for Mouse Guard, where you RP as mice to eventually GM that. And then I think there may be another, but mostly just for D&D 5e.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so I found 5e. I played mostly 2e. That was the bulk of my experience, and then read through 3, 3.5, and 4, even though I wasn't necessarily playing in campaigns at the time. And one of the things that I think myself and uh, some of the guys that I play with on my home games have particularly enjoyed about 5e is that it is sort of the not so brutally punishing version of 2e that we grew up with. Like 2e had a lot of amazing things going on, but it also was very prone to character murder very quickly at low levels. Um, particularly if you had a DM, and I mean, we were playing in late grammar school and early high school, so every DM we had was somebody where it was the DM against the players. Everybody was trying to win D&D. This was not a collaborative storytelling game in which we were looking to explore things. We were just trying to kill one another, and DMs had enough power that they could just, I mean, you'd roll 3 new PCs a night sometimes, and it was just the thing that you did. I think 5e has captured a lot of the mechanical stuff from 2e that was really cool, and but made it prompted both, I think, generationally maybe, but also just in the way the game is played, a lot more player agency, a lot more player respect. It may also just be that I'm old now and am no longer in campaigns, either myself or with other people who are 14. Um, you know, my kid's 20. I don't play with people that are younger than that anymore because I just can't. I don't have it in me. Um, but yeah, and to Cross's point, forget low levels. As your level went up, the rate of saving throw to death increased. Yeah, it was fun. Yes, Throw, it does not hurt at all that my DMs aren't minors anymore. In all fairness, none of my DMs have been minors. Not a single one of them worked in a mine. But
yeah, no, I
one of my
agree with
favorite
you.
jokes. I love that joke.
I haven't read or played the past versions, but I have talked with people who have, and kind of like, watch videos on like more about them. And I felt like after, hearing more that 5e was definitely a better fit. I also like that it's not, there's math and that it's important, but it's not so math and rules heavy that it takes, the barrier to entry is so high.
Oh yeah, you don't have to understand orbital mechanics to play 5e.
Yeah.
If you can add, you're
Yeah.
probably fine. You don't even have to subtract a whole lot.
Yeah.
Actually, and for folks who love the idea of playing 1e or 2e, but don't want to jump into sort of the whole of the systems, there is a system out there called Basic Fantasy Rules RPG that is an open source document. You can just go online, download it, and it is basically a 1e clone that uses the ascending armor class D20 system. So instead of having THACO or some other weird subtractive system, but it plays, if you play it right out, like right in the basic download, you are playing in that classic fighter, thief, magic user, cleric. That's it. Those are the classes. That's what you've got to work with. They have additions and supplements where you then kind of can add on from there, but it's a great way for somebody who wants the feel and the experience of some of those old style games to get into it and play those. Trackhawk. 1E, all the D6, 2E, all the TPKs, 3.5, all the broken, 4E, all the rule books, 5E, all the forgiving. Pretty close. I think that's a pretty easy way of assessing that lineup a bit. Anybody else have questions for Steph? I can continue chatting with them all night long, but if anybody else has questions, don't hesitate to jump in there with them. So this is for all y'all as well.
Yeah.
If it was just them and I having a conversation, we wouldn't necessarily have had to stream it. I mean, we would because content, but still
content.
Yeah, why on earth? That was like after I got into doing podcasts years ago. I got to a point where it felt like anytime I was out with friends, it was weird to not have a recorder and microphone set up because it was like, oh shit, I don't want to not like we're missing this. This is a great conversation. Why aren't we recording this? And that is definitely one of the downsides to this environment.
I have those moments too, but mine are more like, wow, this is so funny. I feel like if I clipped this segment, it would go really great into some kind of reality show about my life. So
Thurl would like to know, if you don't have a pet cat, do you have a pet cleric?
No, I don't know. Is that a joke that I don't understand?
Do you have a professional cleric?
Do I have I love playing clerics. I don't have a pet cleric.
Okay.
I don't know if I understand the joke.
Why do you like playing clerics? What about clerics do you like?
A pocket cleric, perhaps. Everyone needs a pocket cleric. What do I like about playing clerics? So when I first started playing D&D, I played a druid and then realized kind of early on that I should probably go to a less magic-based class, because learning D&D, depending on who you are, can be kind of tricky and take some time. So adding magic in there, I felt, and my partner also felt like too, was also kind of hard sometimes, or at least in the beginning. So switch to more of like the melee ranged classes for all of my players. So I avoided magic after that because there was a lot of things to keep track of and learn all at once. And removing magic from that was just like an easy step. So, but now that I've been playing for a number of years, I was like, oh, great. I feel like I understand the rules, in general, the world, the mechanics. I feel like I can add magic in there. And so tried a sorcerer for a little while, really liked it, but then, tried a cleric, and turns out, you are what you eat, you are what you play, or whatever. And I, in general, am a very helpful, kind person who wants to be able to support them.
Clerics.
And I eat clerics.
Okay.
They taste really good with ketchup. And I just like I just like being like the helper. I'm the helper in a lot of my friend groups. I'm one of the supportive people in my, that I try to look out for others. So I figure, like the cleric really fit that role. Also, I'm kind of like, play more of that role of like make everybody else shine, take the
Mhm.
spotlight and turn it on them a little bit. I don't mind the spotlight on me, but I can definitely tell you that sometimes I get a little bit overwhelmed, especially if people are like very complimentary or nice, then I get stuck on words and what to say. So it's kind of like
Thank you.
yeah, you're
That's all
welcome.
you ever have to say.
I know. Chris, the best, everyone. So being able to play a cleric is nice because I can participate in like the role play and the spotlight without having to demand too much of like that front stage, which sometimes I'm comfortable in, but a lot of times I like to be more front and back. So
So you don't see yourself as multi-classing into a high charisma warlock or bard in this campaign?
no.
No? Okay. All right.
Although I'd say in real life, I feel like my charisma is pretty good as long as I
Yeah, I
don't
would
hit
say
that.
so too. But
As long as I don't get like caught up in awkwardness or like get stage fright or something. But yeah, I think that also I like
that's
playing
why you
my
make
weak
a pact with
points.
the patron, then you don't have to worry about
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
it. So all right, so
Pause. I
started with
just
a druid. Started with a druid. What did you go to from there as a non-casting class?
Yeah, I think the one that I played after Druid was if I'm remembering correctly, I played a rogue. And then I really liked playing rogues because in video games I love playing rogues. I play a lot of stealth-based games, and sneaking through things and plotting my eventual victory is a good thing for me. Not something everybody enjoys with video games necessarily. And then I also played a barbarian and a couple of other classes as well. A ranger, the revised ranger, of course, because the original ranger is a little bit, um, it's not great. Kind of mostly a lot of the characters that I really enjoy playing are like what would be a really weird combination or like what would be a funny story or so they're not necessarily based on like min maxing or like metagaming or I want to play this character because they're the strongest, but what would be a funny combination? Like with my partner and I, we came up with a one shot character that was essentially a gnome sorcerer who had learned all of these air based spells. And so we basically called her Fluff the fart sorcerer, and so I had like poison gas, disintegrate, like like gas cloud, or like all the spells that you would need to emulate what it would be like to fight like that type of character. So just like silly stuff as well as like silly stuff for one shots, but then also characters with interesting and deeper backstories for longer campaigns to like dive into those stories and like learn more about them.
Cool. So Trackhawk would like to know what type of player would you say you are? Are you a power gamer, RP heavy, something else?
Oh, that's a great question because I don't even think I know all of the categories for types of players. Is that something that Chris you
Well,
can
there's
talk about?
jerks. Um, there are people who want to dominate the entire space. There are people who are completely indecisive and never do anything. No, I think that actually you probably have answered the question in a lot of ways throughout the conversation. I mean, you strike me as somebody who is an RP type player.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for.
Mm.
So with that in mind, what's your take on combat in D&D? Like what's your
Yeah.
what it's an interesting element of the game because it is one of those areas in an RPG where we are very intentionally stepping outside of what would be sort of the acceptable bounds of day-to-day life and entering into this space that we are relying on sort of the safety of the game to allow us to explore an energy that we wouldn't get to live out in our day-to-day life. So in that way, what is your take on combat in the game?
I love combat in the game. That's why, like, I was wondering if there were like certain types of like player personas to fall into, because I do obviously love RPing, and that's the area that I probably have the most experience in, as personally. But I also can tell you that I'm competitive, and it doesn't always come out, so strongly. But I like to win, and I like to be strategic. I love to play board games and card games where, after a certain point in time, I can understand the meta, and I can understand action economy. And I actively sometimes have to think to myself, like, I don't want a meta game. I do want a fun game. So help to like kind of balance that out, because I play games like Magic the Gathering, which is pretty complex when it comes down to it, and a lot of high level strategy as far as like when you're doing stuff and when it's being implemented. I love combat in D&D. I think it's like a fun strategy game. It's like a mini game within an RP game.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoy, if I can, as long as the dice don't screw me over too much, I really enjoy being able to like fail and succeed at certain tasks, as well as like support others, and like kind of like it's kind of like being on a team sport where you're setting up the next person to like make that volleyball spike or that slam dunk or something like that. So I love it. I'm not terribly good with math, so oftentimes like that's where I'm failing a little bit, but keeping track of my character and memorizing it is something that I really enjoy. So I'm excited for combat.
I was just going to ask a question and I lost it, so I'm going to jump to Trackhawk's follow up and then I'll come back to mine. So Trackhawk enumerates a handful of sort of the classic player archetypes: the actor, the rules lawyer, the power gamer, the napper, the murder hobo, the metagamer, and the quote unquote winner. Where do you think you fall on those various sort of spectrum?
I guess honestly, like, I don't really feel like any of them really fit me terribly well, but I guess if I had to pick, I would say the winner, but not because I'm like gonna cry if I lose, but that I'm going to set myself up in a position where I'll probably win. Just strategy wise, but not in a gloaty type of way. A lot of these titles seem very negative. Where are the positive ones?
We just say good player.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I.
Okay, good to know. You're just one of the fun people to play with. And Thurl brings up a good point that it may not necessarily be metagaming to be strategic, and I think metagaming is a phrase that gets thrown all around a lot in the D&D space in a negative sense, and often gets attributed to those things like being strategic. I don't think that being strategic, if you are doing so within character, is metagaming. It's gaming. It's displaying the wisdom and intellect that your character has. Now, if you are playing a character with a -1 intelligence modifier and a -1 wisdom modifier, and you begin suggesting incredibly high level strategic planning, yeah, you're probably metagaming because you're doing something that your character would not be capable of doing. I think another area where metagaming comes in and can be problematic is when the player has knowledge that the character doesn't. And it is inevitable that you as a player will bring that to the table at times. The goal, I think, is to try and limit that as much as possible so that you are doing what your character would do. That said, I also think that in any good collaborative game, we don't want to only do what our character would do, because in real life, there are a lot of times that people just do what they would really do and they walk away. Mm-hmm. Like they're not invested in staying in the dynamic or in the situation or in the party. They have such a hard and fast line about a goal that they have set out to attain that if the other people want to go do something else, they are going to have that, screw you guys, I'm going home kind of
Yeah.
approach to things. And that is a level where not engaging in a little metagaming, right? Not being engaged in the meta of this is a game and wholly playing your character like, like you're fucking Andy Kaufman means that you are going to take away from the experience for yourself and others.
Yeah.
So there is that line that I think people need to walk.
Yeah, I think that you did a really good job kind of like going over that. And I would say that, yeah, then in that case, I'm more of a strategist. I feel like, where I constantly looking for improvement is, what I would know versus what my character would know. So I guess like I don't know, I'm more critical of myself than I am of any of my friends or loved ones. So when I say that I'm a metagamer, maybe I'm probably not. We passed a comment earlier from Fast Cat who asked what class I think I'd be. I don't really know. Probably a cleric, to be honest. But if I didn't have to like, if it was real life, like my life as it is currently, I would say cleric was probably my class, but or wizard, because I also love learning. So, and they're always constantly, learning and adding spells. But in like I can do anything goes, I would probably go rogue. Just because like I feel like I'm sneaking around and being able to
Sticky
do whatever.
fingers.
Yeah, it is really fun. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Cross brings up a good point, jumping back to the metagaming thing, as far as if you are intelligent in your character design, you are going to play characters that lend themselves to your strengths as a player.
yeah.
Unless you are really looking to get outside of that. My home game that I play with friends, I play a again, we're playing in a non 5e setting right now, so I'm essentially playing a barbarian though, and I am playing uh, a negative intelligence modifier fighter who acts like a barbarian and is just completely stupid and reckless and a total murder hobo. And I do that because it gets me outside of the way I think about the world normally. Normally I am the guy who's thinking about, all right, well, what happens next? Like yes, I absolutely want to punch this guy in the grocery store, but I'm not going to because it's going to have these downstream consequences and it's not going to go well and it wouldn't be nice and I could get in trouble and people will get upset and what if he falls down and hits his head and it goes further than I wanted it to. That's normally how I process the world. So to play a character that is completely opposite of that is just a great relief at times, right? To just play the dumbest or sneakiest or most aggressive or craftiest or most charismatic, like whatever isn't you, I think can be a lot of fun as well. So I'm gonna jump back to one of Trackhawk's points here, though. If you had to describe yourself using one of the players from Critical Role, but as they are playing their characters in the current campaign, who do you think you are closest to in your play style?
Hands down, Laura Bailey as Jester.
Okay.
You can tell that she likes to be strategic and she likes winning. And you can also tell that she likes to make a character that is silly, complex, and fun. I feel like watching her is such a privilege, but also I learn a lot about myself. And I would definitely say that I feel like strong correlation between my play style and her play style. So
cool. Any parting thoughts before we wrap up here how about this? What do you want to ask me?
Ooh, what do I want to ask you? I would love to know from you as a DM, what makes you really love DMing? Obviously, like there's a lot of different elements. You know, you're juggling a lot of balls, but like, where does the core aspect of like the joy of that process for you come into play?
You know, I spent most of my life on the player side of the screen and have such a tremendous amount of experience there that one of the things that I found when I started DMing more regularly, which has really been in this last year, is it suits my personality now in a way that it never did before. As a player, um, as a younger, I mean, certainly as a kid, but also as a younger man when I was playing, um, I liked just having to worry about myself. Like I didn't have to worry about anybody else. I played my character, I did my part, but I didn't have to worry about anything else. And what I have found is that as I've gotten older and gone through my life experience of becoming heavily involved in instructing in the fire service, mentoring youth, um, being a coach, being a leader in these other areas, what I found for me was that aspect of my personality that wanted to facilitate experiences for other people. And for me, my style of DMing is that it is setting setting the ball so that somebody else can spike it. It's creating an environment where a group of people can come together and have this experience, have this opportunity to engage in play, engage in storytelling, be entertained, be excited, and being in a position to facilitate that happening. And hopefully, along the way, creating some dynamics that get people to also think, that get them to ask questions about, well, why does my character think that? Why does my character do that? Why do I think that? Why is that my default setting? um because that comes from so much of what I did professionally for so many years, was get people to think about decision making in high stress, high tempo environments, that to then have this vehicle to take people through and explore those same sorts of ideas, but also set it up in this way where it's fun and it's playful and everybody gets a good laugh and has a story to tell afterwards. I think that's probably um what works for me.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I chose to be part of this group.
Perfect bookend. So, um, all right. Well, thank you everybody for jumping in and joining us this evening. Steph, thanks for taking some time out of your day to
Absolutely.
talk about this awesome campaign. We are going to continue to be producing these meet and greet sessions with the various players who are going to be jumping in on the campaign. We're going to be posting a schedule of those coming up soon, but you can start looking for those next week. Our first live stream of the campaign is going to be December 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern. So we are all working behind the scenes, so to speak, right now, getting things pulled together, getting ready. And I am utterly excited to drop all of these awesome players in and see what happens. Can't wait. So,
Super
again,
excited.
Steph, thanks for joining us. Cross, thanks for
Yes.
producing everything.
Thank you,
Thank
Cross.
all of you for joining us this evening. And we'll see you soon. Cheers.
Thank you, everybody.